The UN just hosted COP28 in the UAE, and folks, what came out of this event is absolutely mind-boggling. The videos you're about to see should not surprise us, but they are completely outrageous. I can promise you this, we are quickly heading towards the world of Revelation 13, and everything you see here will stand as proof of that. And at the end of this video, you're going to see a blast from the past, and that segment will still shock you. Here we go. 2024 is around the corner. Let's fight the good fight. All right, folks, let's get into this one. Now, we have been talking about this a lot. We have been warning you about so much of the things that we expect to see as we approach the last days. And we are undoubtedly in the throes of it all. Times are changing. Things are getting absolutely crazy. When everything started happening a couple of years ago with the convergence of removing people's rights, when they were wanting to shut churches down, and all of those things were happening in the name of safety and wanting to preserve our lives, and the big crisis was being sort of taken advantage of, we told everybody that more than ever, as the church and as the body of Christ, we needed to stick together, and not only stick together, but we needed to stand up for righteousness, because as it says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, we really are the preserving influence. We are the people who are the restraining force. And as we know from verse 3 of that same chapter, we know that the final Antichrist can't even be revealed to the world unless the church is actually raptured. That's what the departing refers to. As important of a fact as that is, there's a very pressing issue in front of us, and that is the obligation set forth in front of us to actually identify what is true versus what is not true. And we are seeing so many issues that are coming up in the name of climate change. Now, I just want to say this right off the bat, because some of the videos you're going to see are just mind-boggling, and I'm hoping that by showing you some of these videos, you're going to be able to better understand the level of manipulation that's actually taking place and how hard people are working to kind of twist the way you see these things. We're going to show you a couple of videos. The first video I'm going to show you is the introduction to COP28. Now, COP28 was the gathering that was just had a few weeks ago, and it's pretty much the United Nations forum or gathering for the whole purpose of saving the climate. Now, the funny thing is saving the world from preventing climate change is sort of the tool that's being used to take people's individual rights away, to remove all kinds of things that people just took for granted over the years. And we are definitely moving into the direction of the final Antichrist. I showed you the comments that Prince Charles made at COP26. And then eventually I showed you the comments that King Charles made at this recent COP28. And they all fall along in the same arena. They're going in the same direction. And it's going towards the world of globalism. It's going towards the world of the final Antichrist. When we talk about this 10-nation confederation, we are moving in that general direction. And everything that we see beginning to show its ugly face is giving us more and more evidence of that. So I'm going to show you the introduction video right before Secretary Guterres comes up. And what he says is terribly manipulative. When you look at just the way his very words are structured, it's unbelievable. Thank God that the way he speaks, look, you can see the evil in what he says. So we're going to go over that. And then after we go over that, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a document that he actually presented just prior to COP26 that deals with the long-term goal that they had in achieving a certain way of looking at things and a certain set of goals for the whole world. We're not just talking about one section or one region, the whole world, in order to combat climate change. And that document is going to make you sick. We're going to go over it, and I'm going to show you some of it. And it is just mind-boggling when you take a look at some of the stated goals that he actually lists. And we'll kind of close off with that. So let me play the intro that came out at the very beginning of this. And again, this goes to show you the level of manipulation that continues to be deployed to get people to really worry about these things that are happening. Now, I just want to say this. I do believe in climate change. I actually believe as a pastor and as a Christian that the world is going to eventually be destroyed because of global warming, because of heat. And what that destruction will be is when God destroys the world with fire, okay? Make no mistake about it. The Bible says that that's coming. But what they are bringing up is, in essence, a pretext for doing something far more nefarious than the idea of just a simple, kind and affectionate effort to want to affect change in the world. Yeah, they want to affect change in the world, but it's not for the better. So let's play this. You'll see what I mean with the manipulation and all that kind of stuff. And then I will play the opening remarks of Secretary Guterres. And then after that, I will show you the document that he put together. Now, at certain points, I will stop the video so that I can provide some commentary. The intro doesn't really need me to stop, but you'll understand when you see it, and then we'll talk about it before Secretary Guterres goes on. Let's watch this.
The reality is that despite all the effort that's been made here, things are going in the wrong direction.
We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
There are too many things dividing our world at this moment. We are heading in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough.
Whether it will be enough will define this summit.
Isn't it funny, the beautiful music? The world does not need to see more evidence of climate change. What? The world doesn't need more science? The world doesn't need more empirical data? I have to disrupt the emotional music to reveal the lies. We can always use more evidence of things that we're about to change the whole world for, right? The world needs a community committed. What's that community? Committed to what? What's the real thing it needs to be committed to? Ugh. Hope for humanity. The only hope for humanity is Christ. I'm sorry. I just feel compelled to disrupt the emotional condition of the music that's being played right now. I just, the manipulation that's going on by the type of music that's being played, I just feel the need to be a disruptor here, right? The only hope for humanity is Christ. It's not what the UN is doing. If UN was the hope for humanity, we're all going to hell, and we're in really, really big trouble. It's bad. It's really bad. The world needs you. You're the one that's going to do this. unite, act, deliver. That really does have a nice secular humanistic sort of bent, doesn't it? It sounds like the epitome of globalist neo-Malthusian garbage, doesn't it? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. Satan is really, really good at what he does, isn't he, folks? Well, let's continue to listen. By the way, for those of you that don't know, you see all the sheikhs. This was taking place in the United Arab Emirates. So this is in the UAEs where COP28 was taking place. So just FYI.
Let us now introduce a leader whose stewardship epitomizes the ideals of unity, diplomacy, and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Guterres. By the way, I do think it is kind of funny. It's a Middle Eastern woman in the UAE who's making the announcement because they want to show that they're more open to, I just can't. The typical Middle Eastern world would never allow this, but it's just, okay, on we go. We must listen to Antonio Guterres. Don't you love the emotional music that they play? And the flute and all that. Wow. You know, he's like, this is going to be great, isn't it?
Your Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President.
Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. I'm not, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. No, let's continue on.
Of the United Arab Emirates. I want to express my profound gratitude for the wonderful hospitality that we are enjoying in Dubai from the government and the people of the United Arab Emirates. COP28 President, Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al Jaber, I want to congratulate you on the positive start of the COP with an expeditious approval of the agenda and the landmark operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. Congratulations. Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, friends, all protocol observed. Just days ago, I was on the melting ice of Antarctica.
By the way, I just want to warn you on the whole melting ice of Antarctica. He's going to make a big deal of this. He did this, by the way, and I would highly recommend, if you want to listen to all kinds of empty rhetoric and potentially a lot of unscientific lies, to listen to what he says about Antarctica in a press briefing that he gave that talks about how pretty much things are going to pretty much destroy the whole world if we don't change with respect to the melting ice in Antarctica. And we've heard about this stuff for a very, very long time. Not that I'm trying to minimize the idea that we have to take care of the world that God has given us. Undoubtedly, we have to take care of the earth. But the rhetoric that he uses to ease into an agenda that promotes a globalism that carries the whole, for lack of a better term, the whole agenda of a secular humanistic philosophy is literally thick in the air. I mean, you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it.
Not long before, I was among the melting glaciers of Nepal. These two spots are far in distance, but united in crisis. Polar ice and glaciers are vanishing before our eyes, causing a shock the world over, from landslides and floods to rising seas. But this is just one symptom of the sickness bringing our climate to its knees, a sickness only you, global leaders, can cure. Excellencies, Earth's vital signs are failing. Record emissions, ferocious fires, deadly droughts, and the hottest year ever. We can guarantee it even we are still in November. We are miles from the goals of the Paris Agreement.
Can I just say this? We're in Southern California, those of us that are here in Southern California. It certainly does not feel like the warmest year ever, but I digress. Let's move on.
And minutes to midnight for the 1.5 degree limit. But it is not too late. We can, you can prevent planetary crash and burn. We have the technologies to avoid the worst of climate chaos if we act now. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has charted a clear path to the 1.5 degree world. But we need leadership, cooperation, and political will for action, and we need it now.
Political will for action. That's the one that kind of gets me a little bit, because there is going to be a sort of a convergence upon the discussion of political will, because the movement here is for globalism. That's what the movement is. The movement is for the world of the final Antichrist. I can promise you that. And I'm going to show you in a document that he released a few years ago that they are holding very, very close to their chests. And it's going to continue to reiterate the same principles. Take a listen.
It's true. Our world is unequal and divided. As we see in this region, conflicts are causing immense suffering and intense emotion.
In this region, you know, he's talking about these conflicts that are causing immense suffering and emotion and so on and so forth. He's referring to Israel, by the way, and he's going to take a shot at Israel, even in what he says here. It's terrible, but he's going to do that. Let's take a listen.
We just had the news that the bombs are sounding again in Gaza. And climate chaos is fanning the flames of injustice.
We just got news that the bombs are going off again in Gaza, and climate chaos is in essence the cause of all of it. What is it going to be? Is it going to be the Israelis and the imperialist project known as Israel that you continue to imply being the reason why this is going on? Or is it climate change? Do you guys see the manipulation that's going on here? Do you understand how crazy this is? Let's call it what it is. You have Hamas that is being aggressive, and they are doing everything that they can to destroy Israel. They did it on the 7th of October. They said they'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when Israel seeks to defend itself, this guy right here is continuing to propagandize the situation in order to affect the outcome that he wants during COP28. It's not about the oppressors right now. It's all about climate change that has caused all of this stuff. This is insane, but that's what's happening here.
Global heating is busting budgets.
Global heating is busting budgets.
Ballooning food prices.
Ballooning food prices. Energy markets going into disarray. It's all going down because of the climate.
Markets and feeding a cost of living crisis. But climate action can flip the switch. And renewable energy is...
And if we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Gaza. Oh yeah, if we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Israel. If we take climate action, we'll flip the switch in Yemen. Forget the fact that Islam is what's driving an overwhelming majority of what's going on. And let's forget that the open and blatant anti-Semitic sentiment that continues to fill the hearts and the minds of those who are fundamentalists of the Quran do exactly what they're going to do. Man has a somewhat immutable characteristic that is tied to the fact that it was born with a sinful nature that causes the depravity that we see within them to create the propagation of such violence. Climate change.
The gift that keeps on giving. It's good for our planet, our health, and our economies, cleaning our hair, meeting the world's growing energy demand, connecting millions of people to affordable electricity, bringing stability and security to markets, and saving money, as renewable energy has never been cheaper. Excellencies, friends, the diagnosis is clear. The success of the COP depends on the global stocktake prescribing a credible cure in 3 areas. First, drastically cutting emissions. Current policies would lead to...
I have a question. Drastically cutting emissions. So would we drastically cut emissions by not flying every single member who has participated in COP28 via private jet? I think those emissions would be, the totality of those emissions just in those flights alone would be more than the emissions of many of the regions in the UAE for the whole year. But that's a whole different issue. I digress.
An earth-scorching 3-degree temperature rise. So the global stocktake must set clear expectations for economy-wide national determined contributions presented by all countries that cover all greenhouse gases and align with 1.5-degree limit. The G20, which represents 80% of the world's emissions, must lead. And I urge countries to speed up their net zero timelines to get there as close as possible to 2040 in developed countries and 2050 in emerging economies. Second, we cannot save a burning planet via fire holes of fossil fuels. We must accelerate a just, equitable transition to renewables.
So I have a question about the whole fossil fuel thing. If we remove fossil fuels, which, by the way, fossil fuels make everything. Fossil fuels are responsible for the cups you drink out of. Fossil fuels are responsible for every single thing that you know in modern day living. As a matter of fact, fossil fuels were used to produce the podium that that guy is standing behind, the microphone that he's using, and the very suits that he's wearing. Very likely the things that he uses to wash his hair were produced with the help of fossil fuels. So what do? Do we go on to like electric powered cars? Is that how it works? Anybody ever looked up the cost of mining lithium? Anybody ever looked at the detriment that it has in mining lithium? The detriment that mining lithium has to the world? To the earth? Oh, by the way, you've got to use fossil fuels to do that too. Beside the point, I digress.
The science is clear. The 1.5-degree limit is only possible if we ultimately stop burning all fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, phase out with a clear time frame aligned with 1.5 degrees.
1.5 degrees. The burning of fossil fuel. Stop the burning of fossil fuels. So if we stop the burning of fossil fuels, we stop modern day life. We don't have anything. You can't watch YouTube if we stop burning fossil fuels. You understand that? You can't do anything without fossil fuels being burned. They must be burned to produce plastic. They have to be burned to produce the tires that your vehicle drives on. You understand that fossil fuels are used for virtually everything. And even if you don't burn it, the use of those petroleum elements are literally in everything. So to say that we're going to stop burning fossil fuels, that means the whole world is going to go into a lithium mining operation? Is that what's going to happen? Do you understand how destructive to the world that's going to be? Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is nuts.
And the global stocktake must not only commit to that, it must also commit to triple renewables, double energy efficiency, and bring clean energy to all by 2030.
By the way, by 2030, the cleaner energy, the double of the energy renewals, all the stuff that he's talking about here, you are not going to get anywhere near that by 2030 because just you getting off of fossil fuels is an impossibility. Good luck. This guy won't be able to get on a jet and fly anywhere. I promise you that. He's not getting rid of fossil fuels. I can tell you that right now.
The economics are clear. The global shift to renewables is inevitable.
By the way, he's a liar about the economics being clear. Well, actually, you know what? That's wrong. You know what? I want to repent. That's an irresponsible statement for me to make. The economics are clear about these fossil fuels. They are very, very clear. It's impossible economically to be done. It is very, very clear. It's clear.
The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. At the same time, according to the International Energy Agency, the oil and gas industry accounts for just 1% of clean energy investment. So allow me to have a message for fossil fuel company leaders. Your old road is rapidly aging. Do not double down on an obsolete business model.
Isn't it ridiculous that he's standing in the middle of the UAE, where there are people surrounding him that their whole lives center around oil, fossil fuels, and he's basically saying, you're dating yourself, don't ever, you know, good luck? Come on. Really? Are they really listening?
Lead the transition to renewables using the resources you have available. Make no mistake, the road to climate sustainability is also the only viable pathway to economic sustainability of your companies in the future. And I urge governments to help industry make the right choice by regulating, legislating, putting a fair price on carbon, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and adopting a windfall tax on profits. Excellencies, third, climate justice is long overdue. Developing countries are being devastated.
Ain't it funny? He did it right there. He introduced it. There it is. Climate justice is long overdue. Climate justice. Justice.
Devastated by disasters they did not cause. Extortionate borrowing costs are blocking their climate action plans, and support is far too little, far too late. The global stocktake must commit to a surge in finance, including for adaptation and loss and damage. And it must support reform of the multilateral development banks to leverage far more private finance at reasonable costs for developing countries in climate action. And developed countries must show how they will double adaptation finance to $40 billion a year by 2025, as promised, and clarify how they are delivering on the $100 billion as promised. Excellencies, the climate challenge is not just another issue in your inbox. Protecting our climate is the world's greatest test of leadership. And so I urge you to lead. Humanity's fate hangs in the balance. Make this COP count. Make this COP a game changer. Make this COP the renewal hope in the future of humankind. Thank you.
You know, that was good, wasn't it? I'm sorry. I just, you can't resist. This is crazy. But you know what, guys? This has been in the plan and in the making for an abnormally long time. This has been something that has been a part of what they've been wanting to do and what they have done for as long as you can possibly imagine. And I have to show you guys this. I want to bring your focus to a document that we have spent an inordinate amount of time examining. And this is the Common Agenda report that was written by the same guy that you watched do this speech. And this was, of course, a presentation that he continues to actually use as a guideline and almost sort of a manifesto by which he wants to accomplish a certain series of purposes. And let me just go over some of the things that he says in this Common Agenda. Now, we've talked about a lot of things, right? But there are some things that I want you to see that are just completely scary in context of what we've been talking about here, okay? Look at his third item. He says, this is in his summary, by the way. He says, third, now is the time to end the infodemic plaguing our world by defending, notice this, a common, notice, empirically backed consensus, not empirically backed scientific data, empirically backed consensus around facts, science, and knowledge. The war on science must end. How can you, in one sentence, say the war on science must end while you're talking about a consensus that involves empirically backed data, that centers around consensus? Around what facts? Made up facts? It's kind of crazy. All policy and budget decisions should be backed by science and expertise, and I am calling for a global code of conduct that promotes integrity in public information. In other words, we want to censor people who come against whatever it is that we put out in the public, and what we actually tell you is really science. Folks, that's exactly the kind of nonsense that he is talking about. This is absolutely crazy. Look at what he says. We go over a lot of these things, especially when he deals with the youth, but the one that happens to be 6, now it's funny, the number 6, right? Yeah. The 6th item here, look what he says. He says, now is the time for a stronger, more networked and inclusive, that's the term, multilateral system anchored within what? The United Nations, anchored within a new global mechanism. That's in essence what he's saying. Effective multilateralism, right? Multilateralism. Effective multilateralism depends on an effective, he likes that word, by the way, effective, on an effective United Nations, one able to adopt to global challenges, not local challenges, global challenges, while living up to the purposes and principles of its charter. For example, I am proposing a new agenda for peace. That's a key word, right? Multi-stakeholder dialogues on outer space and a global digital compact. On outer space, yes, right? As well as a biennial summit between the members of the Group of 20 and of the Economic and Social Council, the Secretary General and the heads of the international financial institutions. Throughout, we need a stronger involvement of all relevant stakeholders, and we will seek to have an advisory group on local and regional governments. Folks, this is all about bringing the world into the place that we read about in Revelation 13. Okay? He says in this, he says, based on this report, I will ask a high-level advisory board led by former heads of state and government, like who? Obama, right? To identify global public goods and other areas of common interest where governance improvements are most needed, and to propose options for how this could be achieved. Folks, I am telling you this right now, and I think it's really, really important. This plan that he puts together is exactly what it's going to take in the modern day to get people pushed in the direction of full and complete brainwashed nonsense. This document was written a few years ago, and yet it carries a tremendous amount of weight today. If you just browse through the pages of this, and we'll just show you a few pages, you just go by and you look at a few pages of this, you can see that it's very well packaged together, and it is designed to very specifically create a plan that actually allows this type of thing to take place. I'm going to go back and I'm going to play a video for you that I did, and it was a while ago, where I went over this picture that was created a while ago involving what they hope to do through the different crises that are around. And when you watch this, I think it's going to blow your mind because we kind of animated it a little bit so that you can see it, and then I'll bring it back to some closing thoughts. What I want you to recognize as you're looking at this is all of the things that they're saying they want to do in being able to connect to the issue of climate change. When you look at what they call climate action failure, they say, is the very center or the very core of the problems. So everything that you see in this bubble, everything that you see in this web is a direct result of what they call climate action failure. So what does that mean when we say climate action failure? Okay? Climate action failure means you fail to act on the fact that global warming is destroying the country. Or climate change, as they would call it. By the way, I do want to say this for the record. I distinctly, adamantly, and vigorously believe and will defend that global warming is an issue. It is. It's an issue because what it's about to do to our society, number one. It's also an issue because I know that the world will be destroyed by global warming. It will. And if you do not believe me, read the Bible, because the Bible says that God will destroy the earth with fire. And that's some serious global warming. So I'm on record for saying that I believe in global warming, because I know what God's going to do to the world in the future. But this is what they say. And this chart should disturb everybody that watches it, because it starts with climate action failure. That means if you don't do what the totalitarians say that you should do in order to prevent climate action failure, or in order to prevent climate change, then they will define what you are doing as climate action failure. Now, it should be noted that by doing this, you are not contributing to a safe world. You are actually destroying that world. So they say that when you fail to act on climate change, the first thing that happens is extreme weather. By the way, they're not talking about weather modification flights that we have direct evidence of. We see it all the time. They're happening all over the place. By the way, chemtrails are an older way of modifying the weather. You understand they're modifying weather in other ways too. Okay, I'm not even going to get into all that. Let's just leave it be. Okay, let's just leave that part alone. But extreme weather, as they say, is the next thing that happens. That's what follows. With extreme weather, they say that water crisis ensues. By the way, can I ask you a question? In California here, we just had a little hurricane pass by. The skies are clear now. We had a lot of rain. The first 4 hours of it raining, 5 hours of it raining, you could look in the riverbeds in Southern California that were completely dry. Maybe had a small little channel of water that was growing algae and mold and so on and so forth. You could look in those riverbeds, and those riverbeds were literally to the top. They were disastrously hazardous. If you ride your bike on those riverbeds, I would never ride my bike on those riverbeds, or you're going to go down the riverbed a lot faster than you normally would with a bike. They're dangerous. So much water came down, and yet you know where all that water went? Into the ocean. The water drains into the ocean. We don't take it. We don't treat it. We don't recycle it. We don't use our vast resources to be able to harness it. It's all gone. It's gone. And now we're saying that in the state of California, we have a terrible water crisis. That's because of extreme weather. Because of extreme weather, we have a food crisis. Because of extreme weather, we have infectious diseases. Look at the chart. There is a failure of urban planning. Do you see that on the top portion of that screen? Extreme weather creates infectious diseases, food crisis, water crisis, failure of urban planning, critical infrastructure failure. All as a result of extreme weather, natural disasters. How about this one, folks? This will make you sick. Human-made environmental disasters. A human-made environmental disasters can be defined as a fire that rages on where people refuse to deal with. Biodiversity loss. Take a look at that, folks. Biodiversity loss. You know what that means? It's another way of getting them to create another condition by which they can, in the name of equality, deprive most people of the comfortable life that they're living in the name of helping a lesser class be able to find equalization, when in reality, all they're doing is lining their own pockets and growing. Look at the fringe, by the way, of global governance failure. At the fringe of that is what? Weapons of mass destruction. We need to get rid of all those weapons because they are contributing to the climate problems that we have. National governance failure, social instability, state collapse, illicit trade. You don't think that illicit trade is going on with the borders that we're keeping open right now and the human trafficking that's actually beginning to take place? Terrorist attacks. Don't be surprised if we start seeing more of this. Think about that for a second. Energy, price shock. Boy, is that happening right now. If you don't think that's happening, I don't know what to think. Look at what else. Financial crisis, fiscal crisis, deflation, asset bubbles, unemployment. Look at this, guys. This will blow your mind. Data fraud or theft, information infrastructure breakdown, cyber attacks. If you can't look at a chart like this and make a connection with the many things we're actually watching right now, I don't know what else to say. I don't know where else to go. We're moving in a very dark direction, people. We are moving in a direction right now where, in the very darkness that we are witnessing, the condition by which these things are happening is getting worse, not better. None of this should surprise us We are undoubtedly heading towards the area that the Bible says we should be heading into. This is exactly as God said it would happen. And more than ever, what we need to do is we need to speak the truth. We need to stand up for what is true, and we need to continue to never allow a forum for this wickedness to continue on unchecked. It's critical, you guys. We are undoubtedly living in a time and a day that's extraordinary, and there is no better time to be alive, especially if you're a Christian, because this is our opportunity to stand up for the truth. It can't be more obvious than what we're seeing, folks. The days are getting darker, and there it is. God bless you. Fight the good fight.